here's a very simple shift, and it's almost the exact same words. So that question we ask is, what time is it? Stop and ask the question, what is it time for?
Hello, dear listeners. It's that time again when we stroll through the paths of ambition, desire, and success. Welcome to the Dare to Declare podcast, where we explore the enchanting world of giant manifestors who've turned their visions and goals into the stuff of legends. I couldn't help but wonder, how do some people create the lives they've always dreamed of? Is it the magic of manifesting, the power of perseverance, or perhaps just a dash of serendipity? Well, dear friends, grab your coffee cups because we're about to spill the tea on fascinating journeys of those who dare to dream big and make it happen. Join me as we sip on success stories and ponder the ever-enticing question, can we all manifest our dreams into reality, or is it just an urban fairy tale? I'm your host, Debbie Sluice, and I'm here to guide you through the labyrinth of achievement with heart and soul. Ready to dare to declare? Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dare to Declare podcast. I have an amazing guest with me today, Lissa Figgins, and she is a recovering should-do list girl who learned to slow down. Lissa unhurried her heart, letting go of her addiction to controlling time, multitasking, and always doing. Her God-given mission shift the way busy Christian women business owners approach time so that they can finally stop chasing a clock, a calendar, and their to-do lists, and increase the ROI on their time through more impact plus income. Lissa launched her business while juggling multiple roles in her family and community and discovered she couldn't juggle all the things on her own. The key was doing it with God. Always a teacher and mentor, she is the time management strategist who has personally helped hundreds of Christian women business owners redeem their time to build an impactful life plus business with intention and presence. She teaches her clients how to steward their time as a gift from God to stay balanced and growing as the C.E.O, Christ-empowered operator of their WITH-God Life and Business, investing their time wisely as a committed follower of Christ. And most importantly, she wants women to know the truth. You have time. Welcome, Lissa.
Thank you so much, Debbie. It is so amazing to be here. I'm looking forward to this time, pun intended, that we get to have a conversation around time. Because here's the thing. This is the work that most people don't or won't do. And that is to push pause on the busyness and all the doing and all the things that we feel like we, should be doing to think about our time and the results of it. So I pray that this is going to be a blessing to those who listen today.
Oh, I love it. I want to circle back to that phrase, pause on time, in a little bit, but I understand you're just coming back from a family, I'm thinking it's family trip, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And I love that you live what you teach, you live what you mentor. So give us a little bit of context about your life of fullness and abundance and all the things, and how you decided to carve out time to take this trip.
Yeah. So, life is very full. I used to say it was really busy because doesn't everybody feel busy these days? And it just felt like I was always jumping from one thing to the next. But like you said, as you were describing me, God showed me how to unhurry my heart. So I have been married to my husband for almost 30 years. We now have an empty nest. But our son and his wife were here this weekend, and they live really far away. So our time with them is few and far between. And we just found out that they're expecting their first. And so they were in town for a few days, and then we drove them up to my parents' house to enjoy some time with them and then drop them at the airport to go to Spain. So they woke up in Spain this morning. I woke up back here at the Figgy farm. But here's the thing. I have a bazillion things that I could be doing in my business. I'm about to launch a planner. You know how that goes, Debbie, when you've got like all these logistics, all these, like check boxes that need to happen before it goes live. And that's literally happening next week. But my family is one of my priorities. And so I, said, okay, even though I have a bazillion things to do, I'm shutting my laptop. I'm going to be fully present. And I'm going to trust that God is going to give me all the time I need for what still needs to be done when I get back. And so I woke up this morning and you're the first thing on my agenda this morning. So I love that we get to have this conversation. And I am trusting that God is going to make this time enough for what needs to happen in the next week to make this happen. But, it was like you make time for the things that matter. Right. And so, of course, we will, make time for family and things like that.
For sure. And, thinking about belief, about truly believing in God and his power and his dominion over our lives, this is how you demonstrate that in practical ways. So instead of trying to control all the pieces, to push through, to force something, that truly is a beautiful example of your faith, of your trust that God's going to make the way. Now we have a responsibility to follow, the next action that's in front of us, and as you said, making time for your husband and your family. So congratulations! Is this the first grandchild?
It is our first. Yes, we're so excited.
Yay! Oh, I mean, it's so cliche, but they really are the best.
Cannot wait. They'll be far away, but again, thankful for things like FaceTime and opportunities to get to go and spend some time with them. That's what I do. So I
Yeah,
have choices with my time and don't feel like, it's being controlled by someone or something else.
yeah. You know, maybe this is kind of going off here, but I notice myself with my grandchildren compared to my own children, the difference that I am with my time.
Hmm.
Ca- can you relate to that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like you're just getting into this, but I was sharing this with girlfriends last weekend, and we were talking about this sense of wonder
Hmm.
and how we are in awe and in a sense of wonder as we observe our grandchildren. And I don't remember having that sensation, those thoughts, at least not on a like not with the emphasis that I do now,
Hmm.
because I was busy. I was busy in the doing, not in the gratitude and the sense of wonder. And I can totally empathize with young moms. And I mean, I had three under three. My twins were born when my son was three, so it was bonkers town like for a while.
Hmm.
And so it's just beautiful to be able to look at time. So, what would you say for women that are in different stages of their life? Can this unhurried, this sense of pause, how do you incorporate that in the different seasons of your life?
Yeah. Well, I love that you're talking about like, kind of how we're seeing things differently as grandparents than we did maybe even as parents of our own kids. And I think with time, I think we gain wisdom, right? Like over
Mm,
time, we realize those things that we thought were so important and just had to be done and had to be done the right way, back in the day. Really, at this point, we're like, did that even matter? What really matters was the quality of the time that we had or that we have, right? Not just the quantity of time or not just the boxes that we check. I think so often this was me, right? Like I was the mom who was doing all the things. My husband would often be gone for work trips up to a year at a time. So I was at home alone with three kids,
wow.
homeschooling, running a ministry at our church, doing stuff in our community, and running a business and trying to make it all happen. And it was just I was just always I couldn't ever sit and just be. At least very rarely. I would often bring my laptop, my own screen, I call it, to family movie night because I didn't have time to sit and, watch an entire movie when I had stuff that had to be done. So I would just think, oh, I'm multitasking, I'm in the room. But what I realized is I wasn't really present. I would be showing up in body, but not really fully there. And so thankfully, all three of my kids have turned out amazing and we have great relationships and they're all walking with the Lord and they're all, making great choices and starting their families and things like that. So now, like, yes, when they came, it was like, okay, I'm just going to be present and I'm not going to be that mom that I used to be and doing all that because I think with wisdom, we gain that experience. And so for those younger moms, remembering that your kids will not stay, number one, the age they are, let alone under your roof, for very long. And so we don't want to look back and have regrets around how we spent our time and what we wish that we would have done with them. And so it's just being present to the moment. And I wish I would have really, I was all about productivity back in the day, getting the stuff done that had to be done and, feeling like I was being the wife and the mom and the teacher and, the business owner that I should be. And it was about productivity. And God's really showed me that the gift of time is not about us just doing with it. It's about us being with it and really shifting from focusing on productivity to purposivity, being present to the purpose of the time that is in front of us. So I
Mm.
think that applies to any season of life, right? Like, what is the purpose of the time that's in front of us? In fact, that's one of the shifts that I help women make 3 shifts around their time, and that's one of them, is from that productivity to purposivity.
Oh, that's really again, anyone that's listening right now, pull over and write that down. That's brilliant. That's gold right there. And I'm remembering back in the day, a lot of my busyness and time was because I had beliefs, and I felt like I had obligations. I felt like people were talking about me, or like I wasn't. It was my value, it was my worth tied to what my volume of busyness
Mm,
was. It was like I was trying to prove that I was the great wife, I was the great mom, I was the person who was great at work, great at church, all those things. And so can you dispel, I think you've done this a little bit, but in terms of a biblical perspective, I think there is, whatever denomination you are, there is this permeating culture for women that, busyness is next to holiness.
mm.
And I mean, that's pretty dramatic, but I that's how I felt when I was younger. And so can you dispel some of that around what is biblically true?
Yeah. Well, I think that we often, you're right, we wear busyness like a badge of honor. Like, look
Hmm.
at me. But honestly, and I remember this one day, walking into church and asking a friend of mine, "Hey, how's your week been?" And she's like, "Oh, just busy, just always staying busy." And I saw this smile kind of plaster on her face. I saw this like far away look in her eyes. And I was like, I don't think that's what God's called us to. And I often think about John 10:10, when Jesus said, "I came to give you life and life to the full." That's not the same as a life that's too full, right? The enemy, he goes on to say, is the one who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And I think that the number one thing he wants to steal, kill, and destroy is our time and attention. Because if he can keep us busy and distracted, we're over here going in circles, right? Like, we're of no threat to him. We're of no use to the kingdom. We're just over here just keeping ourselves out of the way, with that busyness. And so, there is really this like, okay, what does it look like, to have a right perspective on our time? And one of the passages that I love going to is 2 Corinthians 9:8, that says, "And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you may abound in every good work." And then it
Hmm.
goes on to say, "He who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will also supply and multiply your seed for sowing, and will increase the harvest of your righteousness." And this
Hmm.
was being written to people that was talking about their money and their giving of money. I believe that time and money, as are the most precious resources that we've been entrusted, right, to steward, in this life. And it didn't look like they had anything to give, and yet the reminder that was given to them was, you do, because God's giving you an abundance, and he's the one that multiplies it. And I think the same thing is true around our time, because here's the thing: how many of us run around all day saying, I don't have time, I ran out of time, I'm behind, if I had time, when I have time, if only I had time, some version of there's not enough 24 hours in the day, right? And so then we start believing this, and we start believing it. Guess what? We're chasing time like it's this limited resource. Like, it's up to us to try to capture it, and get control of it and keep it from getting away from us. And so I often point to the parable of the talents in Matthew 25. I like to call it the parable of the servants, because it's really about the servants' hearts, not how much they were given. But if you know the
Right.
story, this
Yeah.
master gives, 1 talent to one guy. First of all, don't feel bad for him, because that was 20 years' wages. So it was a lot. We always think like, oh, poor guy didn't get very much. No, he had an abundance. One guy got 2 talents, one guy got 5 talents. And we don't hear the master's like instructions for what to do with them, but we can see from his response when he gets back what he intended. That one guy who got the 1 talent, right? He didn't think that it was much, and he wanted to keep it from getting away. So what did he do? He reacted in fear, and he went and he buried it, because he was afraid if he didn't keep it contained, then it was not going to be there when the master came back, and then he was going to have a lack, and all of this, right? Whereas the other 2 guys, they understood like this wasn't theirs to begin with. It had been entrusted to them, and that the role that they had been given was to be a steward. was to like care for it on behalf of the master and to enlarge it on behalf of the master. And so
Mm-hmm.
that took faith, because that took them open-handedly going and, probably planting seed and trading things and doing different things. And they didn't have a guarantee, of what that return was going to be, but guaranteed it was more return than the guy who went and buried it, in the ground. And so I think like that parable right there really helps us to look at, we only have two choices around our time: fear and faith.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that fear comes from, this all depends on me keeping things together. Right. And how many of us have said, I just need to be better at managing my time? To manage literally means to keep under control and to exert control over. That's really exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I always often say it's like playing whack-a-mole all day long, because you try to keep everything in line and you have to like literally be hands-on, because like you just said, things happen and people have expectations and, there are disruptions and things like that. And so we're literally putting, if you can see my hands, putting a cap on the results of our time, because we're just trying to keep it all under control. But those guys who responded in faith, right, and they stewarded, it was this open-handedness. And there's no ceiling here, right? And here's what I love to say is, with God, we always not only have an abundance of time, there's always an abundance on our ROI, because he's the one that supplies and multiplies that. And so really, I think we've got this choice. We can, act like those who don't understand, the master and be fearful, or we can choose to be faithful and to know that this is something that's been entrusted to us, and be stewards of it.
Oh, thank you for that. It's wonderful. This is what you and I have had conversations around, how our work connects so beautifully. And I use Matthew 25 often to describe why it's important to create a vision board, because we've all been given a talent, whether it be 1, 2, or 5, and that's our gift of life, and our experiences, our skill sets, and you know what the master said to the one with the one. He said, at the very least, you should have put it in the bank to collect interest. So, we don't all have to be extroverts to be on stages and creating another 5, as in like, millions of dollars. But we do have a responsibility with our time, with our resources, with this life that we've been given, whatever the gifts are that we've been gifted. If you're listening to this podcast, you have a responsibility. And at the very least, it's to increase, as in collect interest. And so it's about making decisions for your time. And you said a couple of other things around destroy and distraction. And truly, those are the nemesis to success. When we are distracted, then it's like the time is destroyed, opportunities are destroyed, or not even noticed. And so my D's to replace that are dream, discover, and declare. So I never put this together with the D words, but can you talk a bit about the ROI? You and I have had an opportunity to speak before this around creating a vision for your life. And I know your planner has to do with goal setting and also visioning. And so taking the time to create focus so that you're not distracted, so that you do make the most of the time that we've been given and the resources. Can you talk a bit about taking time out to create that vision for your life?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like comes down to, are you choosing to live by design or by default?
There's
Most people
2 more
are,
Ds.
right? No more D's. We're all the D words today, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think most people are out there living by default. Oh well, this happened. Oh well, this didn't work out. Oh well, I ran out of time. And yes, there are things that happen in life. But what I love about what you teach, right, is this, like, how do you dream? Right. And you and I both talk about dreaming with God. Right. So that means it's something way bigger than we think that we could even do on our own. And, what does that look like? So I like to equate this to like going on a road trip. If you're going to go on a road trip, you probably don't just jump in the car and start driving. I mean, that's what they call a joyride, but let's be honest, it's going to waste a lot of time, a lot of gas, maybe some frustration and anxiety and relational stress and things like that, because you're going to go in circles. If you don't know where you're going, what do they say? Any road will take you there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that first thing you have to do is you have to decide, where am I going? Right. And so, like, say you want to take your kids to Disney, right? So you are like, have this vision of what your experience is going to be like, when you get to Disney. And so you're packing appropriately. So you've got the things and you're making sure you've got, everything you need before you get in the car. So that way, where you're going. And here's the thing, when you're driving down the road, you are going to hit distractions. They're going to be detours. another D, right? There are going to be, construction zones. There are going to be accidents. There are going to be tourist traps that are trying to lure you off the highway and things like that. And if you don't have a clear vision of where you're going, you are going to be, turning off at every, either turning around when things get hard or turning off at all those random distractions of places that are trying to lure you into whatever their thing is. And you're not going to end up getting to that destination. And so, like, this is where I love the work that you do, because if we need that clear vision of where we're going, because let's be honest, I say all the time, we spend a lot of time reacting to what I call the four shuns. You already talked about one of them, which is obligations, what we think we should do, right? Expectations, what other people think we should do. Interruptions are just the things that literally cross, our plans, even as we're trying to go in some way. And then distractions, right? And so if I don't have a vision, then those things are literally going to have me chasing squirrels all day long. And we can't wonder why we didn't end up at Disney if we literally were turning off at all these, random roads along the way. And so having this vision is so important, right? As we go. And that's how we live by design. And what I also like to point out is when you get in the car, you can tell your GPS, you could type in Disney, but there's one other piece of information that your GPS needs to know before it can route you to Disney. You know what that is? It's that pin of where you are right now, right?
Yes, very good.
Until you oh, okay, here's the vision of where I'm going. That next step, that next piece of information that your GPS needs is where you are right now.
Right.
And that then now I can start routing, a path to where I want to go. And so I think that's, we can again have this great vision. And I'm sure that you've worked with people who've been so inspired when they sit in one of your workshops or listen to one of your episodes, and they've got this vision, and maybe they even created a vision board because that's what you teach them to do. And they got your magazine or they got your planner, right? And then life just happens and all the shuns come up. And guess what? They never go anywhere. That's because a dream or a vision without a plan is just a wish. Right. And so we have to then have that intention around, how am I making time for this vision, right? So that I can actually get from where I am to where I want to be. And that's really the key work, because there are a lot of those shuns that are going to be intersecting our path and keep us from getting there, right?
For sure. And one of the biggest culprits is something that we put in our back pocket, that we've got in the side pocket of our purse, that is sitting beside you on the desk right now. So can you talk a bit about the cell phone and how that has just exasperated distraction, and certainly has just challenged us as we're going on that road trip, that even when we're on the GPS, the cell phone can even be the one that gets you off the route. So can you talk a bit about that and some of the stats that I know that you have?
Yes. I always call this our extra appendage, because you're right. It's always within arm's reach. It's like it's attached to us. We're tethered to it, right? Even if you have your cell phone off, but it's in the same room, statistically, it's like you are not fully present to what you're doing because you're still thinking about that thing sitting over there. So here's what's so interesting. When we say we don't have time, what I tell people to do is go open up your phone. This is scary. Okay. So only if you're willing to look at this, open up the screen time, which is under your settings, and look at what that number is. The average person spends 4 hours and 37 minutes a day on their phone. That's just their phone, not other devices. We all know there's all kinds of other things that are getting our attention. And, my brain likes to kind of look at patterns, and also likes to look at okay, what would this be over a year? So I multiplied that times 365. This is mind blowing. When you do the math, over a year, you will have spent 70 days, 70 full 24-hour periods of your life on your phone. And when we think about, I don't have time, right? And yet we do give so much time to lesser things. And this is why I teach your busyness is not primarily due to a disordered calendar. It's a disordered heart. Our heart is distracted by so many lesser things. And it may feel like, 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there, but let's be honest, we get caught in scroll hole, and it is not 5 or 10 minutes. It's way more than that, right? And it adds up, but we're not really paying attention to what is getting our attention. And there are, this is big industry out there to grab our attention with our phone, right? To get us to want to scroll, just a little bit further in case we miss something, or, to be finding more, connections or things like that. And yet we're missing out on all the things that are around us. I mean,
Right.
again, think about like this age, and stage of life, how many people, our kids or grandkids, are they seeing our eyes? Or are they seeing the tops of our heads? Because so many of us are looking down and not looking up and being present. And so yeah, we're not fully present. Even if we're in the room, it's like our mind is always thinking about something else. And we're missing, the full gift of the opportunity that's in front of us.
For sure. I remember seeing this shocking video. I used to be in early years. I don't know if you knew that, but my audience probably does. I've referenced that quite a bit. And there was a video where it was like a science experiment based on um, the response of an infant to an adult, and vice versa, and how that affects the brain. And it was such a sad video. It was just a little experiment, but this baby, very like nonverbal, was trying to get the adult's attention by cooing, by smiling. And the adult responded, and then it just escalated. The two of them were having this beautiful exchange with eye contact. And then what happened was the baby did it again, and the adult put their head down and didn't respond, didn't make eye contact, didn't. And the baby kept trying and trying, and then the baby stopped trying.
Hmm.
And so, like, this is where it actually impacts infants' development in terms of the brain development. And what we know is that the brain actually shrinks when it doesn't get all those nerve endings. So, I mean, that's just an aside in terms of how we decide to spend our time, but how dangerous the distraction can be, not just for us, but for those around us as
Yeah, I
well.
think about you and I grew up in a day and age when there was a phone hanging on a wall. Remember that?
Mhm. Oh,
And
yeah.
if you were already on the phone and I called you, right, I would get this wah, wah, wah. I would get a busy signal, which
Yep.
essentially would tell me that you are not available,
Hmm.
right? Which, I mean, that doesn't have to mean something bad. But like when we go around saying, oh my goodness, I'm so busy, life is so busy or whatever, I always think about, what am I communicating to the people around me? Like, am I making them feel like they matter if I'm just running around saying, oh my goodness, life is so busy, I'm so busy? Like, it kind of almost like pushes them away because they're like, oh, well, she's too busy. She doesn't have time for me. I'm not important, right? And that's but that was me for so long. And I know that the people that mattered most were not getting me because I was busy and I wasn't available to them. And
Right.
so yeah, it's like, how can I be present to them? And here's where redeem her time was actually built off a scripture from Ephesians 5:15-16, that really describes the choices we have around time. And it says, look carefully how you live, which means there's intention there. Because like we just said, that's the living by design, not by default, where you're not looking where you're going. Not as unwise, but as wise. So we have wise choices we can make. We have unwise choices we can make. Redeeming the time, because I love this version, these are difficult days. Like, amen to all the D's, right?
Yeah,
And all those
yeah.
and distractions and things like that. And so, yeah, so we have this choice as to how we use our time. And to redeem your time, it means to invest it where it matters most and where
Mhm.
it's going to produce an ROI that's going to matter. Because let's be honest, how often have we done something on our device and it didn't matter a year from now, a month from now, a week from now, a day from now, an hour from now, a minute from now, right? Like, what did I just miss because I thought this was what mattered? And so we
Right.
really have to look carefully and say, is this a wise investment or is this an unwise spending? Like with money, you can spend money and maybe get a cute pair of shoes or a great coffee or things like that, but it's not really going to change your life. Or you can invest it in something that's going to produce an ROI, a result, right? It's giving back, and that's going to have a much more long lasting effect than just the unwise spending that goes on.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah, really thinking of the ROI on that. And, I think people are coming to understand that, whether it be Christian or not. It just that it's about experiences. And I'm noticing more people are even coming into the holiday season, like purchasing experiences for themselves and for their family. And what we used to call in the early years is creating those crystallized moments, those
Mm.
moments of, tobogganing, or, of, like you said, going on the trip, or of the picnic at the lake versus just buying more stuff.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I just want to tie this into what you were just saying there. When it comes to ROI, people are like, what do you mean by ROI in your time? Right. So, like, if you have money, right, you can very clearly see, what did I get in exchange for this? Right.
Hmm.
But the same thing is true with our time. And where you are right now is the consequence, good, bad, or indifferent, of how you have chosen to approach and spend time up till now. right? And so if you don't have the results in a relationship, if you don't have that intimacy that you want, or if you don't have that level of business that you want, or you don't have that, the faith, or whatever that area is, look back and see, how have I been investing time in that area, right? Or where have I been investing time in other places, right? And so, not to make it mean anything bad about you, but just to say, okay, my time directly ties to my ROI in every area of my life, which is actually great news, because that means that where you are is just where you are. That
Mm-hmm.
means that you can choose from like this exact moment to invest your time. So say you want a relationship to grow. So right now you can decide, I'm going to invest time intentionally in this relationship and not just expect it to grow on its own, right? Or maybe you have a business you want to grow. I'm going to invest time in specific ways that are going to produce, the kind of results that I'm praying for. And so we really have to, this is why I started this whole thing off by saying, most people don't and won't pause the busyness to look at where their time is going and to see what the ROI is, right? And then to make what I call CEO decisions, Christ empowered decisions, right? Where, okay, how now am I going to approach this based on, looking at where I am and where he's leading me with the vision that you're helping them create.
Hmm. You know, when you say about invest time, what I would say in my work is invest focus, and I think there's siblings there. And yeah, my vision board is a tool that you can create the time and the focus to decide what you want. So I'm curious, when you hear your clients, people saying, "I'm too busy," what do you encourage them to replace that with? What's an affirmation or a line that you would use to replace that?
Yeah. Well, there are 3 shifts that I help women make around their time. And these apply to guys too. So if there are guys listening, same thing. I just happen to work specifically with women. The first one is shifting from saying, I don't have time, or I'm so busy, to I have time. Because you
Mhm.
do. You and I and every single person listening gets 24 hours today. We got 24 hours yesterday. We'll get 24 hours tomorrow, right? Like, we do have time. So it is not true that we don't have time. So I have people tell me all the time, because I end every single podcast episode that I do on my podcast with this reminder at the very end, is that you have time, right? Like this. And so I have people tell me, like, Lissa, you're in my head. I hear you saying to me when I feel, oh, I'm busy and I don't have time. All of a sudden I hear this voice saying, you have time. And so that's that first shift, is what is your belief around time? We
Beautiful.
do have time,
Hmm.
right? And so when we are believing we don't, becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy. The second shift we need to make around how we approach our time is the one of, I'm not called to be a manager, right? Just keep everything under control and hope that it doesn't get away from me. That's seeing the lack, right? That time is a limited resource. We are called to be stewards, right?
Right.
To see, like, this is an abundant gift. I believe that God has given me all the time I need for what it is that I'm called to, and that, when I trust him, it's going to be enough, right? And like you said, there's this partnership, this responsibility, with that. So, and then the third shift I help people make is what the question they ask around their time. So many of us are running around all day long. We're looking at our watch, we're looking at our phone, we're looking at our computer clock, and we're like, what time is it? And how do you feel when you ask the question, what time is it? It's like, somehow I'm behind, or time got away from me, or oh my goodness, that took longer than I thought. And it's the hurry scurry to try to catch up, right? So here's a very simple shift, and it's almost the exact same words. So that question we ask is, what time is it? Stop and ask the question, what is it time for?
Mm.
Almost the exact same question, but even just that, I mean, like, I feel the tension in my shoulders go down, right? What is it time for? Slows you down to 2 things. Number one, it presupposes you have time, right? That there is time in front of you. And number two, it presupposes that there's a purpose behind that time. And so here's where that shift happens from, what time is it and what box should I be checking? That's the productivity, hamster wheel we get on, to what is it time for? This is where we're fully present, not multitasking, not trying to be all things at the same time. And this is where that purposivity comes in, because we're really paying attention to, what is it time for? And so those are the shifts, that I help women kind of make. Like, I do have time. I am a steward of my time. And what is it time for? And I
Yeah.
think it helps, even just those quick little like resets help you now to do something, to make a different choice, to make that wise choice with your time.
Lisa, this is so good, so valuable. Oh, I know that the listeners are going to pull something from this. Those 3 points, brilliant. So, how can people connect with you? How can they work with you?
Yeah. Well, first, if you guys love listening to Debbie, I love listening to her too. Then you probably like other podcasts. So come follow the Redeem Her Time podcast. We talk about all things time, faith, life, business, right? How do we make time for it all? How do we know that our time is being invested wisely and things like that? So you can find that on any platform. And then I put together a special gift for your audience because I feel like we've got so many areas. I know you teach 7 different areas of our life. We've got all these things that are always vying for our attention, and life can feel very out of balance, right? But here's the thing, balance, and oftentimes we think of it as a noun. It's that perfect equilibrium, right? If I give, so much to this side, I have to put so much on this side to make it exactly even. But I think the kind of balance that we're after is actually a verb. So if you think about a ballerina, right? If you look at her from the waist up, it looks like, oh my goodness, she is perfectly standing still. She's achieved perfect balance. Like, how does she do it? But look at her feet. She is not standing still. She is making these tiny little adjustments to keep her from falling too far in one direction, right? So I believe that balance is actually a verb, right? Where we are stopping to pay attention to what's needing my attention. Because here's the thing, if we don't pay attention to the 7 areas that you talk about, then one day they will demand our attention and we'll be on the ground, right? Like, it'll always cost us more to get back up and get going. And so I put together something from my new planner called the Balance Assessment, which will help your listeners to just pause. It's a very simple exercise to evaluate where you are, right? That GPS point we talked about in each of those areas, and why that is, right? Looking at the ROI in your time and how that's connected to it. And then that's going to help you see, okay, where do I need to put some focus? Because maybe it is an area that's on your vision board that you did with Debbie, but it's not getting your focus and your time and attention. And so we want to make sure that we're paying attention to what needs our attention before we end up, over on the ground. So you can find the balance assessment at redeemhertime.com/assessment. And that would be a great tool for your audience to, really assess where they are and what might need their time and attention.
Oh, that's fantastic. Anybody that is familiar with the Wheel of Life, it makes me think about that. But it just, you've taken it to another level and certainly connected it to the ROI around time. So thank you so much, Lissa, for being here. Is there any last words that you want to leave with the audience?
I think what I want to say is this. Number one, you have time. I want that to be on repeat in your head, right? I have time. Whenever you start feeling rushed or hurried or behind, just stop. Because that's never going to take you in the right direction. And just remind yourself, I have time, right? Now, how am I going to choose to use it wisely? And then I think the second one is that reminder that with God, there is always an abundant ROI. And sometimes it's measured in tangible ways that we can measure, in things around us. And sometimes that's the intangible and what's going to last so much longer than us. But, when we are in partnership with him, and when you talk about the life wheel on my balance assessment, it looks like a life wheel, but I put faith at the center. Because I don't believe faith is just one piece of the pie that's equal to everything else. I believe it's the core upon which everything else is built. And so I just encourage you, as you are building your vision with Debbie, as you're really daring to declare it now into the world, partner with God in this process, and you're going to see a whole different result on your time than if you're just trying to be over there managing it on your own.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, Lissa. I hope that many people that are listening are going to take you up on your offer, connect with this extraordinary woman, and dare to declare. Cheers.
Today, we've delved into the realm of manifesting giants, exploring the power of declaring our desires to the universe with unapologetic boldness. But before we bid adieu, I have a little something special to share with all of you dreamers out there. Introducing the Dare to Declare Vision Board magazine and online DIY Vision Board course, your ticket to manifesting greatness in style. Picture this: flipping through pages filled with inspiring images, empowering quotes, and step-by-step guides to help you create the vision board of your dreams. Whether you're yearning for that spacious condo with a view, or a love that sets your soul on fire, our magazine is here to guide you every step of the way. Dive deep into the art of manifesting with our exclusive online DIY vision board course. Led by manifesting expert, yes, yours truly, and seasoned dreamers, this course will teach you the ins and outs of creating a vision board that speaks to your heart and soul. So what are you waiting for? Join the ranks of the manifesting giants and dare to declare your wildest dreams to the universe. Head over to our website, debbiesluice.com, and grab your copy of the Dare to Declare Vision Board magazine and enroll in our online DIY Vision Board course today. Until next time, keep dreaming big and daring to declare. Because in the world of manifesting, the sky's the limit.